Hi everyone, this is Marlon, back with a tutorial video this time. Since everyone responded so well to my watercolor tutorial, I decided to make a tutorial on how I paint my faces digitally. So, I am not going to show you how I do the whole drawing from the beginning to end because of the YouTube time limit, but I am going to show you how I did the face and a little bit of her hair. So, here we go! I picked a drawing that I am working on for someone who won a Kiri ban on my DeviantArt account. And in this drawing I am going to do my version of one of her original characters. So first I start off with a background color. I don't always do this, but sometimes I feel for some reason a background color makes the drawing feel a little less empty than when I am using a plain white background. So after I decided on that, I put in the basic colors that I want to use for the character. At this stage I use an acrylic brush. So from here on out I am first going to add in the basic shadows, and while doing this I try to keep in mind where the light source comes from. And in this case I decided that the light comes from the left. Try to imagine the things in and around her face that cast shadows, like her hair, chin, her lower lip and under her nose. When I added in the shadows, I then smoothened them out to make it softer with the blending tool. After that, I go for a second round of shadows. This time I pick a darker skin tone color and add them at parts in her face where there is the least light. And like before, after I added in these darker shadows, I smooth them out with the blending tool. Then after this I create another layer on top of all the others, including the line art layer. This layer is set to normal. In this stage I use the blending tool to adjust stuff like the proportion of her face and chin, and to blend away strange pencil lines that don't fit in. I also smoothen the colors together where needed. At this part my line art often gets smudged together with the colors. For this reason I like to give my line art a brown color instead of black, because if you mix black with any other color, it gives that color a greyish tone. So in this case it would give her an unhealthy greyish skin tone if I kept the line art black. Now I add in some lighter parts above her eyes. With the Western Caucasian people, part of the skull just below the eyebrows stick out a little, which causes shadows around the eyes. However, the part that sticks out should be highlighted a little bit, because it catches a bit of light. Next, I adjust the eyebrows. I like to start making them broader in the beginning, and then making them thinner as I move to the side. With the blending tool, I make them a little bit bushy at the front to give the feeling that it's made of hair and not just some painted on eyebrows, which you can sometimes see on people. I then concentrate on her mouth. I pick a nice pink color and paint in the lips. I soften the edges by blending in the pink a little with a skin tone. I always make the upper lip darker than the lower lip, because the light mainly hits the lower lip. After I am satisfied with the color and shape of the mouth, I redraw the inner lines of her mouth with a dark brown color, and repaint the inner part of the mouth with white because of her teeth. this stage, I keep in mind the light source and paint in the lighter pink at parts where the light would hit. And then finally I paint in some gloss at the lower lip in white. At the ends of the mouth I added a bit of shadow of her skin tone because her mouth is curled a bit because she is smiling. I also keep a small part underneath her mouth light so that the shadow between her mouth and chin is emphasized a bit more. I then move on to her eyes. I always like to smudge out the colors and to fix the shape of her eyes like I did with her face earlier. Then, with a dark brown color, I repaint her eyelashes. I use the acrylic brush for this. With the same color, I paint in the pupils as well. At the lower part of her eyes, I keep a thin line of her skin tone, which is the edge of her eye. This is the part where the teardrops form at. After this, I adjust the eyelids and try to make the eyes look as identical as possible. Because of the roundness of the eyelids, it catches light and should have a light skin tone. Then I paint a dark contour around the irises and soften things up a little at her eyelashes. Now I paint in the light of her eyes. Starting off with a lighter blue color, I paint the lower part of her iris. Because of her eyelashes and eyelids, there is a shadow cast on the upper part of her eyeballs. So I also paint in an extra darker part in the upper part of her iris. I then paint in extra light reflections in her eyes. I also add in white at the lower part of her eyeball and then add a white dot of light in each eye to give her eyes that extra shine. Now, at the final stage, I add in the light. Since the light source comes from the left, I paint the edge of the left sides of her nose and face white. I then add blobs of white on parts of her face that stick out, like her cheeks, chin and her nose, and then smoothen them out with the blending tool. I then make final adjustments where needed, like adding some lighter parts on her eyebrows. With the airbrush tool, I paint in some soft pink on her cheeks to give her a bit of a blush. As a bonus, I will also show you a bit in short how I paint hair. I usually start off with a darker color and then paint in the light parts later on. I first adjust the shape of her hair. So now at this stage I have the basic color of her hair, and I then add in the lighter parts where needed, making sure the light comes from the left. Then, when necessary, I add in the darker parts of her hair where the shadows are. I then smooth out the streaks as usual with the blending tool. And there you have it. I hope that was a little bit helpful, and feel free to leave any comments or questions that you have about this tutorial in the comment section below. And let me know if you have any suggestions of things that you want me to make a tutorial from. I wish you all a nice day and keep on practicing.